Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the SNP has suspended MSP Mark MacDonald from the party following fresh claims about his conduct. ByFab workers travel to Holyrood to make their case for saving the troubled engineering firm.
This government has told us that renewables is the way forward, so we stand here today united to fight for our jobs, to fight for our families.
Also on the programme, calls for the prosecution service to do more to prepare victims of rape and other sex crimes for giving evidence in trials. Could the Borders become Scotland's next national park? And the world's best rugby side, the All Blacks, get ready to play Scotland at Murrayfield on Saturday. Good evening. Mark MacDonald, the former Scottish Government Minister, has tonight been suspended by the SNP after what's described as new information came to light about his behaviour. He previously resigned from government office after admitting he had sent inappropriate text messages. Earlier today, he made his first broadcast remarks on the controversy to BBC Scotland. He told our reporter Rebecca Curran he hoped his constituents would give him a chance to change.
Morning, Mr MacDonald. Can we have a quick
Rebecca.
chat with you?
Oh, I'm just going in to see some constituents
Mr
today.
MacDonald, the constituents want to know, can you tell us why do you feel it's okay to stay on as an MSP but not appropriate to stay on as a minister?
Well, I said that in my statement. I said that I'd reflected on what I'd done. I had apologised profusely for what I'd done, and now I'm seeking to change what how I've behaved.
Mark MacDonald as Children's Minister launching the Baby Box project. He resigned over inappropriate text messages, but says he intends to stay on as an MSP.
In your statement you said you'd cause considerable upset and distress. Why are those actions okay for an MSP but not for a minister?
Well, as I said, I reflected on what I'd done, reflected on the actions, believed that I had caused somebody upset and distress. That was why they had raised concerns regarding what I'd done. I've reflected on that. I've apologised for that. I have stepped aside as a minister because I felt it was not appropriate for me to continue in my role as a minister.
But why not appropriate for a minister but appropriate for an MSP? You're still serving the public.
Well, as I say, my constituents will be the ones who have the opportunity to watch, how I conduct myself, to look at whether my behaviour changes. As I have said, my behaviour will change.
Mr MacDonald was elected as SNP MSP for Aberdeen Donside in 2013. Tonight, the SNP has suspended him from the parliamentary group and the party, following new information in the last 24 hours. Rebecca Curran, Reporting Scotland, Aberdeen.
Well, our political editor, Brian Taylor, is at Holyrood this evening. Brian, why has the Mark MacDonald suspension happened today?
It's the new information that was mentioned there in Rebecca's report. Remarkable movements in the last hour. Two statements, one from the SNP, one from the Labour Party, to which we'll come in a moment. Regarding the SNP, there had been speculation earlier that there would be this move against Mark MacDonald. That speculation seemed to go away, and then finally, as I say, within the last hour, saying new information has come to light. He's been suspended from the parliamentary party and also from the party, from the SNP party itself. Now, I understand it's a different incident from the one that led to his resignation as a minister, but it is not at this stage a formal complaint lodged with the party. It is information which has come to their eyes through what is described to me by an insider as being a roundabout route. But nonetheless, they felt that information was sufficient, given the atmosphere, perhaps given the atmosphere. The information was sufficient to bring about the suspension tonight, both as a member of the Holyrood group, but also, as I say, from the party itself.
Well, moving on to Scottish Labour, they've put out more information on Alex Rowley, who also faces claims about his conduct, which he denies. Yeah,
you will remember that after a remarkable day, he was suspended from the Labour parliamentary party here at Holyrood. He is adamant that he has done nothing wrong. Last night, I reported that the resignation letter, his role in resigning from his leadership roles, had not been published by the party because it was forming part of the investigation. They have now changed their minds on that and published the letter from Mr. Rowley. In that, he says these are events from 4 years ago. He says he knew nothing about any complaints whatsoever until the police contacted him this year on October the 10th, following newspaper inquiries. Now, as a result of that, he said that he then contacted his lawyer and been working with him since. What Labour is basically saying is they didn't know, they only knew about newspaper rumours. They put those rumours to Mr. Rowley. He denied them absolutely and categorically. So what Labour is essentially doing is trying to exonerate itself from claims of a cover-up. Stress again, Mr. Rowley is adamant he has done nothing wrong and will fight to clear his name.
Brian Taylor at Holyrood, thank you very much. Meanwhile, the two men vying to be the next Scottish Labour leader have both denied there's been a cover-up over the alleged conduct of Alex Rowley. The party's new leader will be announced on Saturday. One contender says it's been an uncomradely contest, while the other says it will take more than just words to unite the party. Our political correspondent Andrew Kerr has been assessing Labour's hopes of rebuilding.
The shopping centre demolition in the capital continues. Labour's hoping to rebuild too, but they've taken a good few knocks. Jackie Baillie, another interim leader, led at First Minister's questions. Alex Rowley stepped aside from the role amid claims about his conduct. He rejects the allegations. Both leadership candidates denied claims of any cover-up over the Rowley story. But it's been a tough fight, with tension between the so-called moderates and the pro-Corbyn side.
Well, it won't come simply from a call for unity. It will come from a sense of purpose, a unity of purpose, that we're all working together. We've all got a sense of the kind of different society that we want to build, the kind of changes that we need to make to the economy.
It has been at times a uncommonly leadership election, so how we end those divisions and bring our party back together is going to be really important. And how we demonstrate to people that not only does a UK Labour government matter and a UK Prime Minister matter, but actually a Scottish Labour government and a Scottish Labour First Minister matter too.
One former leader said she would pass this advice on.
The importance of the Scottish Labour Party putting Scotland first, and you've seen both candidates in this contest pledge their allegiance to Jeremy Corbyn and everything that he stands for. That is of course important, but it cannot be put ahead of doing the right thing by Scotland and Scotland's interests.
Another former leader denies there's a fundamental split in the foundations.
Labour's message of how we can move forward, move the country forward, was beginning to be heard at the general election earlier this year. So that's a really good platform for a new leader.
Many voters probably think they've seen too much of the wrecking ball in Scottish Labour over the past few years. Party members will no doubt be hoping for a reinvigorated and refreshed party after the leadership announcement on Saturday. Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Hundreds of workers from the troubled engineering company ByFab have been taking part in a demonstration in Edinburgh today as efforts to save the company continue. ByFab warned last week that it was in danger of going into administration after a dispute over payments with a contractor. The Scottish Government said it was focused on resolving the crisis and open to discussions about financial support. Lisa Summers reports.
The mood, like the day, was bright, but it's almost a week since a dark cloud descended over these workers. Today they took to the streets of Edinburgh with their families to demonstrate. Back in Burnt Island, one of 3 ByFab yards, a handful of workers stayed behind, barricading the gates to ensure nothing came and went. The company is on the brink of closure. 1,400 workers face an uncertain future.
The guys are working for nothing, they're doing their shift, they're getting their normal work, and we're just carrying on and hoping that the powers that be will help us.
We want to be able to live as a family in Fife and have my husband working in Fife and not having to go travelling away hundreds of miles.
The dispute centres around a multi-billion-pound project to build an offshore wind farm in the Moray Firth. The key players, the consortium in charge, Beatrice Offshore Wind Farm Limited. The lead is Scottish and Southern Energy. Then an offshore specialist, a Dutch contractor, Seaway Heavy Lifting, in turn subcontracted ByFab and other companies to build jackets for wind turbines.
Seaway Heavy Lifting, the Dutch contractor, and SSE, they are the key to getting this solved. Our message is very clear to them. Pay your bills, allow our members to get paid, because nothing is going out those yards. The workers are not going to let anything go out the yards. We know that Seaway Heavy Lifting wants to take the work elsewhere. It's not happening.
But SHL insists they've paid for the work that's been completed. They say they need guarantees that costs will not spiral. All the while, the workforce is caught in the middle.
Whoever is to blame for this standoff between ByFab and the contractor, the workers have gathered here in their hundreds to say that it's too important to let their futures be at risk.
At Holyrood this lunchtime, there were assurances the government was doing all it could.
Our fundamental focus just now is on resolving the contractual issues that have led us to this situation. And of course, the government will remain open to discussions about financial support should that be required.
For now, heading back to work. But time is running out if this once lauded company is to be saved. Lisa Summers, reporting Scotland.
Well, Stephen Godden is in Burnt Island for us this evening. Stephen, what's the situation there tonight?
Well, these are desperate times for ByFab workers, and you can see behind me the desperate measures that they've taken. That huge piece of machinery blocking the gates, nothing can come or go, and the blockade's being manned by workers. Now, they've done that to ensure that they can carry on with work for which there is no certainty that they'll ever be paid. Now, you heard in Lisa's report there are lots of interested parties in this. Today we've had some qualified optimism, but ultimately from the outside things remain the same. Talks are continuing, we're told. Now, John Swinney, standing in for the First Minister today, said that there has been progress, but there is still some distance to go. He didn't rule out the Scottish Government becoming financially involved, but said that the focus was very much on these two private companies finding a solution. A solution, he says, is important for the country. It's most important, though, for the workers here in Fife and on the Western Isles, where the unions will visit tomorrow to update staff. They'll do so in the knowledge that the clock is ticking.
Stephen Godden, thank you very much. The prosecution service should do more to prepare victims of rape and other sex crimes for giving evidence in trials. A report by the Chief Inspector of Prosecutions highlights the experience of victims in the witness box who found the court process degrading, humiliating and terrifying. Aileen Clark reports.
In replica courts like this, law students learn all about what happens in real courts. But the trouble is that for members of the public going to court to give evidence, and particularly rape victims, the witness box can be a very frightening place. Now, 3/4 of the trials going on in our high courts now are for sex crimes. So this is a growing and very real problem.
The Chief Inspector of the Prosecution Service was a prosecutor herself for more than 20 years. But she was surprised to hear just how much some victims are left feeling uninformed and unsupported.
We heard from victims that the process was too long, they weren't kept informed, they didn't understand sometimes when they were given information what it actually meant in reality for them, and they didn't feel prepared when they actually got to court. They wanted a more discussion about what would happen at court.
The inspector heard some hard-hitting views from rape victims who told her their court experience was the most degrading and terrifying thing. They felt totally humiliated and was worse than being raped. A sentiment shared by this woman who gave evidence in her rape case.
Overall, my experience was very negative. It's had detrimental effects on my mental health. The experience broke me, and it was honestly as difficult as being sexually assaulted in the first place. It was the most degrading thing that I have ever had to go through personally.
At Rape Crisis Scotland, they welcome the report's aim to make improvements, but say it's a change in court practice that's needed.
I think somebody having to go and give this evidence of such an intimate nature in such a formal setting, give such protracted evidence over often a period of many days, I think causes a significant amount of additional trauma. And to me, I think what we need to be looking at is something much more radical about pre-recording evidence of rape complainers.
In a statement today, the Prosecution Service said they attach a great deal of importance to ensuring that we fulfil our obligations to victims. There is more work to be done to ensure that every victim feels supported through the justice process, particularly children and vulnerable witnesses, and they say they're working to make improvements.
Today's report sets out 12 recommendations to better support victims of sex crime, who of course so often are the crucial witnesses in these cases. It's hoped that more support for them will result in more successful prosecutions. Aileen Clark, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's just after 17 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. The SNP has suspended MSP Mark MacDonald from the party following fresh claims about his conduct. And still to come, could the Borders become Scotland's next national park? A study suggests the majority of Scots never speak to homeless people. Research commissioned by the charity Street Soccer Scotland found 2/5 of those questioned said they were afraid of rough sleepers. Katie Hunter reports.
Patrick is 60. He and dog Bobby often rely on strangers for life's basics.
Somebody put me on a wee blanket and somebody put me on a wee jacket.
Patrick says people generally treat him well.
You can't get any nicer people. I mean, people give me dog food and something to eat all the time.
John has been homeless for 18 months. He struggled with drug addiction after his mum died.
I've been spat on, been assaulted and stuff like that, but people that they walk by, I do get a lot of regulars that they come back and chat to me, even if they don't give me money. It's just like, cheers you up.
Street Soccer Scotland uses football to support people who are homeless or working through mental health illnesses, including addiction. It commissioned research which found 2/3 of people questioned never stopped to speak to homeless people, with more than 40% saying they're fearful of rough sleepers. The charity's founder was homeless himself for 3 years.
At the end of the day, regardless if you're homeless or not, people are people, you know, and I think we live in a time where compassion and care and empathy, you know, is sometimes missing, you know, and I think we need to kind of bring that back and realise that just that human connection and speaking to someone can make all the difference and offer that little bit of hope.
Charities estimate around 5,000 people sleep on the streets of Scotland every year.
When I walk by, I do give them Coke or a cup of tea or some change, whatever I can.
I think people don't stop as they're frightened. It's because of the drugs and all the alcohol issues, which should be getting dealt with.
When I was younger, I used to be actually homeless myself. I used to sleep in closes and stuff. So I think when I see them like that, it brings back some memories.
The charity behind today's research hopes it's the first step in reducing the loneliness that comes with homelessness. Katie Hunter, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
National parks can showcase dramatic scenery, protect the environment and boost tourism. The Scottish Government say they're expensive to create and complex to run, but campaigners want Scotland to have 7 more of them. One of the proposed areas is in the Scottish Borders, from where Cameron Buttle reports.
I'm standing on the edge of what could be the Borders National Park. It will run from just south of Galashiels. It will take in the Eildon Hills here. It will miss out Selkirk and Hawick, but it will take in Jedburgh and run all the way down south to the border with England and the Northumbrian National Park.
The huge amount of free publicity worldwide that you get when you designate a national park, favourable publicity that raises the image of a place as a beautiful place with a fantastic cultural heritage, attracts visitors like flies to honey.
There are already 2 national parks in Scotland, the Cairngorms and Loch Lomond and the Trossachs. Campaigners want another 7. The Borders, Galloway, Ben Nevis and Glencoe, a coastal and marine park in Argyll and Bute, Glenafric, Wester Ross and Harris. Exactly who and what will be in the Borders National Park has yet to be decided. At the moment, Jedburgh is in it. Many here are in favour, but there are concerns about the detail.
It's just gone downhill, and look at how many shops are shut, and if it encouraged people and tourists, and Scotland's a beautiful country.
I think it's a good thing, and it's far better for the tourists, I think, because I think it's important that you keep it looking unspoiled.
Depends. If they're going to bring in wildcats that are going to eat all the sheep.
Wildcats aside, living in a national park does come with potential restrictions. One concern is the effect another level of bureaucracy would have on development and expansion.
In rural areas, you know, for farmers wanting to diversify, I think there could be significant restrictions on them wanting to put in wind turbines, for example. In terms of mainstream house builders, again, it may be restricting where they can actually develop and the type of development that they could do.
Setting up a park in the Borders would cost around £1.2 million alone. Those calling for more parks say they are an investment in the future and they will pay their way.
In Finland, for example, shows that for every €1 that you spend on a national park, you generate €10 in additional income and investment into that area. So we think it wouldn't just be expenditure, it would actually be investment.
The Scottish Government says there are no plans for more parks anywhere in Scotland. It says they're complex with major cost implications. At the moment, it seems there is neither the political will or the money to establish the Borders National Park. But campaigners say they will fight on to change that. Cameron Buttle reporting Scotland, Jedburgh.
The world's best rugby team are in Scotland, preparing to face the Scots at Murrayfield on Saturday. New Zealand's All Blacks have never lost against Scotland in 30 matches. Alistair Lamont has more.
This loyal band of supporters have travelled halfway around the world to see their heroes, the All Blacks in Edinburgh, to face Scotland. A quick change, as Peffermill playing fields are graced by surely their most celebrated visitors. The All Blacks are among the most renowned teams in world sport, but with the retirement of legends like Dan Carter and Richie McCaw, perhaps their crown has slipped just a fraction. Defeat last month against Australia, a drawn test series in the summer with the Lions suggests that maybe, just maybe, they're not untouchable.
Teams have shown they can pressure. They put New Zealand under pressure, either getting them to make mistakes, I think the Lions showed that, or scoring points through their own attack. Australia showed that on a couple of occasions. So we understand how difficult it will be, but there have been examples of areas where New Zealand haven't been perfect.
But the record against Scotland is pretty close to perfect. Since the first meeting in 1905 ended in an All Blacks victory, the countries have met 29 times. Scotland did manage a draw in 1964 and then again in 1983. Since then, though, it's been a succession of New Zealand wins, including the most recent in 2014. But their head coach expects a sterner test than when the All Blacks' second string held off the Scots.
You know, Vern's done a really good job with them, and Gregor will come in and he'll add his touch. Like you got a back and a forward there, so the forward's given them a little bit of edge, and Gregor will come in and polish that edge and make it into a lovely wee gem, I should imagine.
That wee gem will have to be at its most polished, you feel, if the All Blacks' proud record is to be blemished.
They're down a lot of key players, their entire top string front row. They've lost, a lot of backs, so they're struggling at times. Ben Smith's not here, Israel Dagg's not here. They're a team that if you're going to get them, towards the end of the season when they're getting tired and they're down a few players, yeah, they're fallible.
Words of encouragement for Scotland as they aim to make it 31st time lucky. Alistair Lamont reporting Scotland.
In football, the search for a replacement Scotland manager is still focused on Michael O'Neill, the present Northern Ireland manager. The SFA has asked to approach him, and the Celtic boss Brendan Rodgers reckons that if his fellow countryman got the job, he'd be taking over a national side capable of reaching their first major tournament in more than 20 years. Keradine Idsan has more.
Could this be Scotland's smiling saviour? He's an award winner,
Michael O'Neill,
including recently BBC Sports Personality Coach of the Year, and he comes highly recommended by those at the top of the game.
He's done a brilliant job from where Northern Ireland were until where they are now. If he's looking at Scotland, he might think, OK, there's a really good bunch of players here that are developing and there's a chance to get them to the Euros.
His Scottish connections are clear. A resident of Edinburgh, he also played for half a dozen teams here, including Dundee United, Aberdeen and St Johnstone. But he really found his feet at Hibs.
I want to start again and prove to people what I'm capable of, and this is the ideal platform to do it.
Fast forward 23 years and Michael O'Neill proudly patrols the touchline for Northern Ireland at last year's European Championships, with Scotland conspicuously absent. His only managerial experience in Scotland was in the third tier with Brecon City. Shamrock Rovers was his other club job, guiding them to unprecedented progress in Europe. But he really made his mark with Northern Ireland. He struggled at first, but patience paid off as he took them from 88th in the world to 23rd and to a major tournament.
I think Michael has the ability of getting the best out of players who possibly are not playing at the highest level.
in their clubs, but when they come to the international team, they put in performances worthy of any international players.
Here in Lanarkshire, the man who took Motherwell to a National Cup final also worked closely with Michael O'Neill at the Euros. So does he think he could handle the pressures that come with the Scotland job?
Yeah, I think he's more than equipped for that. You know, he's a shrewd man, he's a clever man, and I think he'll be able to handle that no problem.
Away from football, he got a 16-month driving ban following a conviction this year for drink driving.
Have you anything to say, Michael O'Neill?
It's his record with Northern Ireland that interests the SFA. Given the chance, could he also bring Scotland back into football's big time? Kerry Nidsan reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Well, let's see what we can expect from the weather in the next day or two, Coser.
Sally, it's been cold, hasn't it? Cold with showers, but there have been some sunny spells too. Good evening to you all. So some sunshine and a lovely sunset too. This picture sent in from one of our weather watchers across Tainault in Argyll and Bute. And we have had some lovely spells of sunshine, but also those showers continuing. So as we head into the evening, blustery showers, clear spells. Now those clear spells mainly towards the east. Now it has been windy. Here's the pressure chart. You can see how tight the isobars are, especially across the north of the country. We've had gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour across parts of Orkney and Shetland, and here we'll see the strongest of the winds as we head through the night. But it is windy for most of us as we head through the night. Those showers mainly across the north and the west. Long clear spells developing further towards the east, and it will be quite chilly tonight. Temperatures dipping to around 2 or 3 Celsius for towns and cities, but for rural areas down to freezing or just below. But with the wind, we're unlikely to see too much of a frost. For tomorrow morning then, we'll see those showers still with us, and they could still be wintry up over the hills. Maybe the odd rumble of thunder, some hail further towards the north, where we still have some gale force gusts. So if you're heading out around 3 o'clock, you can expect some heavy, frequent showers across the north. It will still be windy as well. Some of those showers merging together across the northwest Highlands, maybe the north of Argyll as well. There will be some sunny spells in between, the best of which will be further towards eastern Aberdeenshire, Fife and Angus. A bit more in the way of cloud generally compared to today, and still feeling cold in the wind. Temperatures around 7 to 9 Celsius. During the evening, those showers are still with us. They're still frequent across the west, fewer further towards the east, and it remains windy, especially across the north of the country. Looking ahead then, well, high pressure continues to slip southwards, and by Friday night into the start of the weekend, the wind direction changes to more of a northwesterly, so we're drawing in colder air and we'll continue to see some showers. But with shelter, there will be fewer showers, more in the way of sunshine for the central belt southwards. Those showers mainly confined to the far north with the strongest of the winds. And that's your forecast.
Thanks very much, Corso. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'll be back with the headlines at 8 and the late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, from everyone on the team right across the country, have a good evening. Bye-bye.